I've always admired the quality of storytelling and world building in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. It might be something you've never really thought about before, but they were able to convey a surprising amount of characterization through a series of bite-sized cutscenes bookending levels. And instead of being a series of disconnected locations, each level fleshed out the game's central setting, Angel Island, and Dr. Robotnik's mechanized assault on it through environmental storytelling. So let's jump right into things. Sonic 2 ended with the space station, the Death Egg, being destroyed high above the planet, and Sonic 3 picks up a few days afterwards, with Sonic and Tails investigating its crash site. They're on the same plane they flew off in at the end of Sonic 2, forming a nice through line and sense of continuity, alongside the way Sonic transforms into Super Sonic right off the bat, assuming you obtained all of them in the last game and he still has them. He flies straight through a beach and into the forest as if this is any other island. But of course, we all know from decades of sequels that Angel Island is supposed to be a floating island, but it's currently at sea level due to the impact of the Death Egg. This island can be seen in the water on the title screen, with Tails flying in the tornado up above, setting the stage for the game's events. In the intervening time since the crash, Robotnik has been able to convince Knuckles the Echidna, the island's guardian, that Sonic is his enemy, intruding on the island in hopes of stealing the key to Angel Island's levitation, the Master Emerald. So the first thing that happens is Sonic gets surprise attacked by Knuckles, who knocks the Chaos Emeralds out of his possession, takes them, and laughs about it. One of the biggest reasons I think this game's storytelling is so interesting is because there's no voice acting between any of the characters, which isn't that noteworthy for the era, but it's also a game with a lot of cutscenes where none of them have any written dialogue or any text narration explaining things to the player. You gather everything from what you soak up from the environments, and get a grasp over the situations you're placed in and the relationships between characters based solely on their body language. Anyone can understand it no matter what language you speak. You instantly recognize Knuckles as a rival with a lot of strength who's also a smug troublemaker, and he'll continue to sabotage Sonic's progress through levels, throwing bombs and flipping switches, which serve as the justification for detours through levels that shake things up visually. For example, cutting the power in Carnival Night. His appearances can also explain the transitions between levels themselves, like dropping a bridge Sonic is on to send him down into the aqueducts below in Hydro City, a level that begins naturally with Sonic falling from above. Transitions like this between acts and zones are very common, and help make the adventure feel interconnected in a natural way. Sonic will jump onto Flying Battery at the end of Mushroom Hill, and then jump off at the end of that zone, and land in the sand in the next one, requiring you to jump out before playing. Sonic teleports from Carnival Night into Ice Cap and begins snowboarding down before starting the level proper. At the end of that stage, he drills his way down to Launch Base, which starts with some snow at the start showing where you came from. I already mentioned falling into Hydro City, but after that stage, a geyser launches you up into the air and Sonic falls down into Marble Garden. Back in Sandopolis, Act 2 begins after a pyramid physically rises out of the ground, and inside it's naturally dark, requiring you to continuously light the torches that are represented in the background. The game is full of cinematic flares that flow naturally through the course of levels. For example, Robotnik's army of drones that set the jungle ablaze near the end of Angel Island's first act, transitioning its beauty into a fierce inferno for Act 2. You have this sequence, which is admittedly almost impossible to fail, where you're chased by one of Robotnik's bombers, helping you gain more perspective on the scale of his destructive force. But right after this, you get this really cool moment where you see him and his new machine behind the tree line, building anticipation for the boss fight when he finally explodes from the waterfall in the background, something that's used for the design of the boss itself to conceal its movement and protect him from damage. The game constantly goes from cutscene to gameplay smoothly, making it all feel like part of the same immersive experience. It's all presented from this same 2D perspective, without any cuts except between levels while they load, which again adds to immersion. That moment also highlights how the game tends to foreshadow its bosses before you face them. We saw this with those drones from earlier, which then went on to become a mini-boss. But we also see this drilling robot before we face it. At another point, Robotnik's transporting this crate, which later turns out to be a robot he places down to fight you. Before we actually face him in Lava Reef, we see his latest machine flying in the background firing missiles at us, serving as a hazard as we try to platform above a bottomless pit. Even the final boss is foreshadowed in Lava Reef, as its hand reaches up to attack us, but we don't see its full body. Some people mistakenly believe only the first level of the game takes place on Angel Island, since the first level shares the same name. Naturally, if this first level is Angel Island Zone, the others wouldn't also be part of the same place. Especially with the drop down into Hydro City, I guess some people assume you fell from Angel Island down into the ocean. But since the level is full of these flooded ruins, it only makes sense for it to be related to the ancient Echidna culture that used to live on Angel Island. Now, Sonic 1 and 2 also took place on their own islands, those being South and West Island respectively. But I don't really think those settings factor into the experience of going through those games. I never really considered they even took place on islands going through them. But Angel Island is key to Sonic 3's story, and the fact that it's a floating island is a switch up from the previous games, giving this one a much more mystical and ethereal feel. When the island is shown from a distance, you can estimate where the different levels in the game take place. From the beach to the left where the game began, to the pyramids of Sandopolis, the mountains where Ice Cap and Lava Reef are, and the temples of Marble Garden. A lot of levels are underground, so you wouldn't see them from the outside, but we can speculate that these waterfalls connect to Hydro City, and maybe this forest here with slightly different trees could be Mushroom Hill. Sky Sanctuary is disconnected from the island itself, and obviously levels like Flying Battery, Carnival Night, Launch Base, and the Death Egg are man-made, more transient, and recently constructed locations that show how Robotnik has gotten his claws into the island itself, since crash landing there with his army of robots. We see the way he's changing the island and using its resources firsthand. We already talked about his drones that are burning down the forest, but one of the bosses is a logging robot using an axe and chopped wood as a weapon. Those drilling robots seen throughout Marble Garden and Lava Reef are altering the geography and possibly collecting materials for construction. The presence of this robot in Marble Garden even causes these ruins, which are connected once again to the ancient Echidna society, to collapse into the ground, resulting in a level hazard for you, which you need to escape and avoid getting crushed by. The events of the game's story are actively represented in the levels, and serve to justify the obstacles you have to overcome. In Flying Battery, we see the capsules used to trap animals so they can be turned into robots lining the background, meaning this location must be part of their assembly process or how they're distributed throughout the island. A little different, but we see he's trapped ghosts within the pyramids of Sandopolis, which is a concept that not only adds to the mysticism of the setting, but also shows how far he's gone to subjugate the sacred sites of this culture. Robotnik has a satellite in Mushroom Hill that's altering the seasons, and you notice this as the environment changes colors as you go through the level, even before you find the cause, damaging it and causing things to return to normal. He's doing something similar in Ice Cap Zone, with some kind of climate control robot that's causing a blizzard. After it's defeated, the snow stops and the environment lightens up, making me wonder if all this snow was caused artificially, or if the island naturally has a snowy peak. I'm just speculating their intentions within the context of Sonic 3 itself, since of course Ice Cap is revisited in Sonic Adventure, and snow is shown on the mountains in that game's slightly revised version of Angel Island. An opposite lighting effect is used at the end of Marble Garden. After Robotnik shatters the ground, justifying why you fight him while flying, the sky then darkens as you make your way to Carnival Night, an artificially lit funhouse that contrasts the black sky. Launch Base as a level is totally story relevant, since it's where the Death Egg is being repaired after its crash landing on the island. You see it in the distance, so you know what your mission is, and the sense of scale is really impressive. Then, after you beat the boss for Act 2, you actually get to jump into Robotnik's hovercraft and watch Sonic ride by the engines of the Death Egg's launch platform as it begins to take off, giving the whole sequence a sense of urgency. In the process, you even run into Knuckles, who once again tries to stop you, but ends up falling into the water below due to the vibrations of the rocket's firing. Sonic manages to reach a platform before it's too late, and gets lifted up alongside it, with the sky darkening as the Death Egg leaves the stratosphere, which is fittingly intimidating since it serves as that game's final boss. In both versions, after Robotnik's defeat, the platform breaks off, and you see the Death Egg, which you just separated from, falling back to the planet in the distance. Once again, a difference in the standalone Sonic 3 is that the Death Egg actually explodes, meaning Sonic's job is complete. But if you're playing the complete version of the game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the Death Egg will continue to fall in a mostly unharmed state, alongside the platform Sonic's on. Quickly, if you didn't know, Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles were both released as separate games, but their cartridges were designed to connect together, forming the complete intended experience, where your progress through the story would flow from one to the other. The intro to Sonic & Knuckles, which makes up the second half of the game, shows the immediate aftermath, with the Death Egg crashing back down onto the highest peak of the mountain of Angel Island. A nice touch is how the Sega logo itself gets disrupted by the shock of the impact. Here we also see a bit more of the island from an overview, including what could be the beach from the intro, the pyramids of Sandopolis again, and of course the mountain, which we later learn is above Lava Reef Zone. One of the first things that happens in Mushroom Hill, which opens up the second half of the game, is Knuckles sneaking out of a hidden area and locking it behind him. When you check out where he was coming from, you find one of the game's many giant rings. These are portals that Knuckles knows the layouts for since they're from his island. After stealing your Chaos Emeralds at the start of the game, he hid them throughout the game's special stages, which are entered through these giant rings. If you manage to get them all by then, regaining your super form, these giant rings in the second half will take you to the Chamber of the Master Emerald, which is surrounded by 7 flowery platforms. This place has such a fantastic atmosphere to it, and once you get here, your Chaos Emeralds are taken from you, and in their place appear 7 giant Super Emeralds that lack any color. Each giant ring lets you come back here and stand on one of these giant emeralds to complete a special stage, granting you a Super Emerald and bringing color back to the one in the chamber. Of course, if you complete all of these, you gain a power beyond Supersonic, that being Hypersonic. In this form, Sonic can damage everything on screen every time he does a double jump, and can even breathe underwater. This chamber is a real location within the world, and you end up coming back here later in the story, and your progress throughout these special stages are represented accurately, making it all feel connected and consistent. I just think it's cool how this side quest you pursue of your own accord is taken into account within the game's cutscenes during a key moment. This is during the climax, which takes up the last 3 levels of the game in a truly grandiose series of events. After falling down into Lava Reef from Sandopolis, you get a glimpse of the massive cave structure making up the inside of this mountain. If you look closely, you can see the visage of the Death Egg sticking out of the ceiling from where it crash landed. Eventually, you make your way up closer to the ceiling and you get a detailed look at it, showcasing the scale of this environment. Knuckles tries to screw you over by knocking you down with a rock, and you end up even closer to the face of the machine. Earlier, the level went from hot with lava to cooling down into a blue crystalline look. But when the Death Egg suddenly activates, its eyes light up and ignite the level again, destroying your platforms at the same time. This whole bit really puts into perspective the Doomsday potential for the Death Egg, since it so casually destroys the things around it even in its current state. The stream of lava used in the boss fight against Robotnik eventually cools off, and Sonic makes his way to an ancient structure the game calls the Hidden Palace. This is another level that contributes to the history of Angel Island, and the ancient society that was lost to time. Without drawing attention to it, levels like Hydro City, Marble Garden, Sandopolis, and the following ones, Sky Sanctuary, inspire speculation as to their purpose and origins, and what life was like there for those who used to inhabit these spaces. Areas like this have me thinking back to all of those theories I speculated about back in my video on Shadow the Hedgehog, and how the adventure games expanded on the lore established in Sonic 3 with Chaos, the god of destruction. We once again get a look at the Death Egg in the ceiling, which looks glorious with the light shining down around it. It's impressive how they created so many unique renders of this machine just to convey its looming threat appropriately. Knuckles tries to stop you one last time, and you have a short boss fight against him. In the background, we see a mural detailing an ancient prophecy, which is a nice touch foreshadowing the true final boss fight of the game that we'll get to. After Knuckles is defeated, the two of you make it up to the same Master Emerald Shrine I mentioned before. Robotnik finally betrays Knuckles since his usefulness as a distraction is no longer needed. Again, this dynamic is clear even though it's done without any voices or text. Knuckles attempts to stop him but gets shocked in the process, leaving him weakened. He shows you the way to the Sky Sanctuaries so you can pursue them without him. And once you get there, high above the clouds, you see the Death Egg emerging in the distance. You can spot a bunch of robots flying out of it, which turn out to be these things called Egg Robos, metallic recreations of Robotnik which you actually then go on to fight all throughout the level. I believe the reason the Death Egg is suddenly able to fly when it previously needed an entire launch platform to make it to space is because it's now harnessing the power of the Master Emerald to make it float, like it originally was with Angel Island. You go through a bit of a gauntlet with a robot who uses returning boss designs from both Sonic 1 and 2, which again contributes to the sense of continuity between these three Genesis adventures. He's called Mecha Sonic Mark II because he's an improved version of the robot you fought on the Death Egg back in Sonic 2. You can tell they're related since they use very similar attack patterns. It's really cool how he immediately destroys your teleporter and starts attacking you, but regardless, you leave him short-circuiting as the level falls apart. As Sonic makes his way up this spiral path, it crumbles right behind him in an iconic sequence, and he finally leaves Angel Island's history behind, arriving within this cybernetic destroyer. You're dwarfed by the scale of this place, highlighted in the way the background appears stationary, meaning even though we're running all over this place, it's only a tiny fraction of its interior. In the second act, we see the planet in the distance, meaning the Death Egg has finally made it to space successfully. The last boss in this zone is the robot we had a brief encounter with in Lava Reef, but now we see his full design with the Master Emerald positioned in its chest, powering its deadly laser. Once you take it down, Robotnik tries to escape, and you need to stop him as the walkway crumbles behind you. If you didn't manage to get either super forms by this point in the game, Sonic falls back down to the planet but isn't strong enough to keep hold of the Master Emerald, and they're separated before Tails catches him and the two of them fly off in the opposite direction from where the game started. After the credits, you'll see Robotnik with the Emerald, implying it fell back into his possession after Sonic lost it. Now, if you have either Supersonic or Hypersonic available, you'll get an additional final boss encounter titled Doomsday Zone, which was hinted at previously by that ancient mural, where you chase after Robotnik as he flies away, first in a spacecraft and then in his robot with the Master Emerald in hand. In his super form, Sonic snatches it up and turns back to normal on his way back down from space. This time he doesn't lose the Emerald and it's tethered to the back of the tornado as Tails catches him. They fly over Angel Island, dropping it off in the process, and we finally see it rise out of the water and return to the clouds. This moment could blow your mind if you never realized this wasn't just an ordinary island you were exploring. If you're Hypersonic during the finale, he'll fly the whole way down and gracefully land on the tornado, showing how powerful this form is in comparison. It's really cool that they put the effort into showing a difference between them. And after dropping the Emerald off, we even get an extra shot of Knuckles appreciative of the support. During the normal Supersonic ending, we see an Egg Robo rise from some of the wreckage, and this is actually meant to lead into the Knuckles storyline of the game. It starts with Knuckles enjoying his peace being restored, when a bomb drops down and scares off the animals around him. It's that Egg Robo continuing its programmed mission to cause chaos, and he goes on to fight Knuckles at the end of each zone using Robotnik's old machines. Since Knuckles has a shorter jump but can climb walls and break through obstacles Sonic couldn't, you end up going through different routes in the levels, which expands our understanding of the setting to some degree. The same can be said about the stages in two-player mode. I always like when multiplayer maps showcase a piece of the world that we didn't get to see in the main game, since it makes the world feel so much more fully realized. There's some confusion, but the Knuckles story does take place after the main game. And one of the big reasons is that during Angel Island Zone, they went through the effort to actually change the background to reflect that the island is in the sky, not in the water. You also never see the Death Egg in Launch Base or in the ceiling of Lava Reef or Hidden Palace. It's not like Launch Base existed naturally before the Death Egg crashed there, so it only makes sense that this is after it took off in Sonic's story. The ghosts in Sandopolis are also already released from containment, since Sonic already wound up doing that. This playthrough is a bit shorter than Sonic's, since there wouldn't be a reason for Death Egg Zone to exist at this point. So instead, it ends at Sky Sanctuary. When you get there, you can see Angel Island rocking back and forth in the distance, meaning something must be going wrong with the Master Emerald. The Egg Robo returns and grabs Knuckles, taking him over to Mecha Sonic, who survived his last encounter with normal Sonic. Looks like they're working together, and this whole thing might have been Mecha Sonic's plan the whole time. He ends up destroying the egg robo on accident when he goes to finish Knuckles off, but he jumps out of the way. You have the same boss fight against him, but instead of staying down, he jumps over to the Master Emerald and siphons its power, enabling him to temporarily go super, showing that he's been designed to be more similar to Sonic than we expected. Sky Sanctuary is separated from Angel Island itself, so its removal explains why the island is unstable. You can only hit Mecha Sonic in the limited window when he loses his power and goes to recharge. After dodging his various energy attacks, he eventually explodes into pieces. And the next bit depends on whether you got the emeralds or not. If you didn't, Knuckles looks exhausted as Sonic comes to save him in the tornado, which is actually Sonic's plane despite how many times we see Tails flying him around throughout the series. They fly around the island, but it descends back into the ocean, where it sits just like at the start of the adventure. Then we get a shot of Mecha Sonic reactivating next to the emerald, showing you've got unfinished business to deal with if you want to restore things back to normal. That happens if you beat him with the emeralds, where we see him triumphantly holding the Master Emerald, delivering it back to the island, where it rises back to its rightful place as the credits roll. It's worth mentioning Sonic also comes to save Tails at the end of his story, giving all of these endings a sense of internal logic and consistency. Hey, I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. I hope I was able to bring more attention to how well done the storytelling was in Sonic 3. It's not the most in-depth story by any means, but they went out of their way to fill the game with so many details to make sure it flowed in a cohesive way. They still managed to effectively convey twists and betrayals, even without any voices or text to work with. They used the environment to help tell the story, creating a central setting full of history and intrigue. These zones you end up in and the hazards you navigate feel like they have an in-universe reason for existing, making things feel grounded, yet they also found a way to make it all fun to explore and imaginative without compromising their world building. Those are some of the reasons this will always be my favorite of the classic Sonic games, and why I'll continue returning to it and singing its praises.